that introduction. I know I'm the only one standing between everyone and lunch, so let's dive in. The topic, and in the next 15 minutes or so we'll cover is really about going back to the basics. I think since the morning today, we've heard a lot about change and how the ecosystem's changing, how technology is changing, how users are changing. So we'll really, in this session, touch upon some of those things and talk about how do you go back to the basics of your mobile app marketing strategy, look at it with a fresh perspective, and then use that to shape the new mobile growth playbook. If you look at the India ecosystem, and again, I think in the panel discussions earlier today, Sanjay, Ron, everyone touched upon how the India mobile app ecosystem has been in some ways, exploding. If you look at, the times of COVID, it really changed the way users think about mobile apps. Obviously, because there was so much time spent at home and on mobile phones, but the numbers from that have been irreversible, right? If you look at the India app market, it's projected to grow at more than 11% in the next 5 years, and that's a very good number given the base at which we already sit today. Mobile ad spends are expected to cross 4 billion just this year. So really some of these numbers are starting to solidify India's position in the global app economy, right? And of course, that again shows in the fact that India is also the second largest market by app downloads. And some of the numbers, right, most of you sitting here would be aware of those numbers, but they're really staggering when it comes to the user metrics. We talked about a population of 1.6 billion, people, but if you look at the smartphone coverage, we're talking about 931 million smartphone users in 2024 and expected to cross 1.1 billion by 2025. So of that 1.6 billion, this number literally means that, almost 70% of your users are already on smartphones. 80 apps on an average on most smartphones and touching 5 hours of time spent on mobile. So really, staggering numbers in terms of just how the Indian app ecosystem has shaped up in the last few years and where it's expected to go in the next couple of years. What does this mean? What does this mean for users? What does it mean for, marketers? For users, of course, it means more apps, means more choices. But it makes life similarly, tougher for marketers because more choices for users means that as marketers, it's harder for you to cut through that clutter, to find users' share of time, to find time to, and ways to engage with the user and still get to, your ROI, to get to your customer lifetime goals and so on. And not just that, right? If you look at user behavior, that's also evolving rapidly. Users don't look at apps as a mere functionality or, a utility today. They're looking at apps as something which will offer them something which is resonating with them, which is relevant, which is personalized. So users have also become more demanding, right? And they have a plethora of options and choices that they are sitting with. This, of course, has implications, right? And that's what we'll talk about. What does this mean for you as a performance app marketer? How do you deal with all of these changes that we talked about? Advancements and changes in technology. I think we heard a lot about privacy and AI in the sessions earlier today. And again, we'll touch upon those briefly. We're talking about changing user expectations, changes in user behavior, how much more choices, how much more demanding users have become. And of course, the fact that you continue to sit in a very, very competitive market, especially in India when you have so many players in every sector, right? From fintech to OTT to gaming to commerce. The result of all this, you can look at these as challenges, but really, how do you convert each of these then to an opportunity to really shape the new growth playbook? The first is, of course, user attention and retention. Given all of this, the share of time that a user has for any piece of content or any app is extremely limited. And therefore, the need to personalize, to make it relevant for the user is much more. Ad experiences and formats, right? Ad experiences and formats, and I think it was mentioned in one of the sessions earlier, is a very, very key part of how you reach the user and how you communicate with them. There's a need to reach the user at the right time in a mind frame when they're ready to engage, and in a very, very non-intrusive way. Privacy, again, I think we've already talked a lot about it, and there are more sessions later in the day, but the ecosystem has changed. With IDFA going away, with changes expected on GAID, there is going to be a lot of changes in how you think about everything in the value chain. Ad fraud and measurement, this of course has been at the forefront, and again, it requires, as some of these technologies evolve, to continue to invest in your measurement, in your attribution, in your ad fraud technologies. And another interesting one is the whole part also around App Store optimization. We've obviously lived in a world of Play Store and App Store, but as the ecosystem's evolving, everyone's looking for new ways to distribute, new touch points for their users, right? And really, how do they differentiate? And OEMs and telcos, carriers are starting to play a big role there with some of those coming up. So essentially, if you have to look at prioritizing your customer lifetime value, I think that's what most of the conversations in the previous panel were about. There is a need to become more user-centric, to look at evolving technologies and systems and how do you adapt to that. And of course, the whole notion of data. How do you get access to the right data, to rich data, which allows you to continue to target, optimize, and get the right customer lifetime value. So we'll talk a little bit then about what are the trends that are shaping the new mobile growth playbook. You heard about some of them in the earlier sessions today. We'll introduce one or two more interesting and new things as well. One is around just innovative mobile surfaces. Now, all of us have always looked at our smartphones as a passive device. Mobile surfaces is really about how do you make your smartphone as an active smart surface, right? And allow that smart surface to operate for you in a way that it allows the user to natively discover apps and contents in a personalized way, in a relevant way. Right? And that's sort of the new evolution of smart surfaces, moving away from smartphone as just a passive device to a smart surface where you can bring relevant, contextual, personalized experiences for your users. Of course, AI, I think that two-letter word is sort of been there in our lives for a while. But AI not just as something which is cool and new, but really how does it play into your mobile marketing strategy? There is, of course, the element of Gen AI, which plays into your content, into your creatives. How do you use that to make things more local, to make things more relevant? But also how AI plays a role in automation, in your campaign efficiency and optimization, in your targeting and pricing models. So the role of AI will be very, very key in this new mobile growth playbook. Privacy, I think no conversation on a mobile growth playbook today is without privacy. Most of you who've either had apps in the iOS ecosystem have seen that change in the last 2 years with the IDFA. And now, with Android and Google starting to do the same with deprecation of cookies and GID, you will see a lot of those changes as well. So really adapting to the demands that a user-first, user-privacy-led ecosystem will put on everyone is important through all of these initiatives around privacy sandbox or SK ad network or probabilistic attribution models, identity graphs. All of these things will become front and center in the new mobile growth playbook. And of course, attribution models, right? And how they will evolve as you step into this privacy-first world. It's going to be a combination of deterministic and probabilistic models, while obviously keeping ROI and customer lifetime value at the core. So how do, as app marketeers, you capitalize on these opportunities? And this is pretty much, a gist of a lot of things that we talked about today. Really engage with users when they are in an app discovery mindset. And that's where the part around the right time, the right message comes to the fore, because not every user is ready to engage at the right time. It may be, intrusive or disruptive to their experience. So really finding the user at the right point in their journey is an important one. And at that time, being able to reach them with a personalized experience is even more key. Of course, looking at new audience segments, new demographics, India is still a very untapped market when it comes to the scale of users that you can get to. So that continues to be an important one. And of course, then on the changing technology landscape side around privacy, around investments in AI, relooking at your user acquisition and re-engagement strategies. I think remarketing and re-engagement is a core part of any app marketer's life. And in the face of all this, staying agile, right? Because I think we talked about change, and we're not saying it's going away. It will continue to be in our lives because we operate in an extremely dynamic industry. So staying agile in the face of all these and really adapting will be very, very key. So what are some of the opportunities for the ecosystem, right? I think we had, almost every, player who contributes to this ecosystem talk today. But really the user or the consumer is at the core of this ecosystem in a lot of ways, right? Ultimately, we're trying to serve the user or consumer in the best possible way. So what role do different people have to play? There are content platforms or apps which surface content to the user. Either it could be a service, it could be a utility, it could be some form of entertainment, it could be some value exchange basically with the user. There is OEMs and telcos. Why? Because that's where they play a key part in the smartphone's journey and life cycle. App marketeers, like a lot of yourselves, who are trying to reach this user in the right way, at the right time. And of course, mobile measurement partners, right, who have a very, very key role to play. And how do all these players come together to really create or co-create the right experience for the user, and also the right experience which in some ways can also be future-proof with a lot of these changing dynamics in the ecosystem. So content platforms, right? And this is a little bit of what we've also been doing at Glance. How do you really create something which is end-to-end, frictionless, right, seamless, and still personalized for the user, right? Going right from the first mobile surface that you're exposed to as a user, which is the lock screen, to then the subsequent screens around the home screen, widgets that you may have, and finally the apps on your phone. And now, of course, there's connected TV in the mix as well. So really trying to bring the whole mobile surface and extended surfaces like TV together in a very seamless contextual experience for the user, which allows for very, very native content discovery, app discovery, and solves for some of the challenges that we talked about, that how do you reach the user in a non-disruptive way with the right content, with the right messaging at the right time. OEMs and telcos, right, they have a key role to play in this journey because they're actually helping redefine the smartphone experience. So if you look at, especially on Android, it really, how do they convert a passive device to an active, smart companion for the user, right? To help with discovery of apps, consumption of content, to help with decisioning, right? How does the smartphone actually become your smart companion, right? So that's really been the attempt with some of the work that we've been trying to drive, that how do you redefine your smartphone experience and make it, sort of, help you with discovery and decision making. App marketeers, the role that app marketeers like yourself have to play is that if you're trying to acquire the next 500,000 or million high LTV users for yourself, you really need to get the user in the right frame of mind, right, at the right point in their life cycle, and therefore being able to reach them at relevant, what we call micro moments, is extremely critical, right? You have two examples here, one of Jio Cinemas last year from IPL, where they surfaced IPL moments, match moments. I think someone talked about how cricket is, you can't do without it. So IPL moments, live scores, right? Interesting news about IPL onto the smart lock screen, and then use that moment to engage the user, create a hook, and then get them to, download the app. Similarly, Swiggy, which is a food delivery app in India, how they use meal times, again, as a very contextual moment to bring the right, kind of meals or recommendations to the user. Again, get them to engage, and then, go down the path of acquisition and engagement. So really, as marketeers, how do you think about engaging with your users in a deeper way, right, to create something more relevant for them? And of course, bringing it all together, mobile measurement partners like AppsFlyer, who are, there to sort of bring the ecosystem together, sort of as custodians of, privacy, of building trust, and data security as well, making sure that, when it comes to attribution and measurement, they're really sort of, holding the bar for everything to come together. So, just as a final thought, really, that's some of the work we've been doing to bring together a full-fledged performance stack with Glance, which is, our owned and operated B2C platform, distributed via OEMs and telcos, and InMobi, which is our performance DSP, to bring together, advertisers on our third-party app ecosystem. So, yeah, with that, hopefully, this was useful, really to bring together, how to think about your new mobile growth playbook in this ever-shifting, ever-changing landscape that we've been talking about. Thank you.